Hello everybody and welcome back to Lost Planeswalker. You are here with me, Jesse, the Lost Planeswalker, and today we're doing Ygra, Eater of All. This is a very unique Golgari commander that revolves around food. So let's look at Ygra here. 3 black and a green legendary creature elemental cat with ward, sacrifice food, which seems actually pretty powerful because there's a lot of decks that don't run any food. But other creatures are food artifacts in addition to their other types, and have 2, sack this permanent, you gain 3 life. So this is a pretty cool static effect that just turns all other creatures into artifacts and food. Whenever a food is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Ygra, Eater of All. So this commander sets up the board, gives you a way to pump it up, and if you can put any number of different ways to evade things on this creature, boy, you're in a world of really cool stuff here. So let's talk about how this deck is going to revolve. We're going to talk about all the different food cards that can go around it. We can talk about some of the support, and of course, the good stuff there at the end to help round out the deck. I will say, I don't normally build a maybe board, but when I was building this deck, I had a lot more cards in it than I thought so. So if you want to check out the deck list, please do so. So let's dive right in at the food and look at combo cards here, okay? Food and artifact creation always comes with some really cool cards to add in, like Academy Manufacturer, Experimental, Confectioner, and Peregrine Took. Academy Manufacturer here just gives you a bunch of clues and treasures along with your food, so you can just cast more spells whenever you cast a creature, so that's really fun. But the 2 cards I really want to highlight here are Experimental Confectioner and Peregrine Took, because this is a combo that works so well with each other. Experimental Confectioner is 2 and a black. When it enters, create a food token. Whenever you sack a food, create a 1/1 black rat creature token with this creature can't block. Now, when you also have Peregrine Took on the battlefield, if 1 or more tokens would be created under control, those tokens plus an additional food token are created instead, meaning whenever a rat enters, you create a food, you can sack 3 foods to draw a card. The Experimental Confectioner will see the food being sacrificed, will make 3 more rats, which makes 3 more food, and it just goes on and on and on. Now, whether you're going to use that to pump up your commander, just draw out your entire deck, or make a army of rats. Food have gotten a lot of support recently, and this commander is very, very strong. Next up, hybrid food legends we have here are Greta, Sweet Tooth Scourge, Gnome, Master Chef, and Pippin, Warden of Isengard. Greta, Sweet Tooth Scourge here, when she enters the battlefield, create a food token. For a green, sack a food, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, activate only as a sorcery, or for 1 in a black, sack a food, you draw a card, and lose a life. So Greta gives us some good outs with our food tokens, and definitely a use for them. Gnome, Master Chef, 2 black-green legendary creature, Troll, Warlock with Trample. At the beginning of your end step, create a number of food tokens equal to a number of non-token creatures you had enter the battlefield under your control this turn. You can sack a food, target creature gains indestructible until end of turn, and tap it. Gnome gives us a lot of outs. Obviously, we're going to be creating a ton of food whenever we cast our creatures that then turn into food. But we also have some creatures that maybe if we don't have any actual food tokens on the board, we can sack those creatures and give something else indestructible. And then Pippin, Warden of Isengard, black and a green legendary creature halfling advisor with partner with Mary. Now, notably here, we can't put Mary in the deck because we're not playing the other color, which is white, in order to play him. But we can pay 1 and tap to create a food token, or tap and sack 4 foods. Other creatures get +3/+3, gain haste until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. A pseudo overrun effect, not giving trample, can be kind of a downfall, but just giving everything +3/+3 and haste seems good enough for me. And then next, we're going to looking at sacking some food, some great ways to use your food for some great results. We have Feasting Hobbit, Feasting Troll King, and Rampacious Guest. So Feasting Hobbit, 1 green creature, halfling citizen with Devour, food 3. So if you don't know how Devour works, every time you would sack a food in this case, you get to put 3 +1/+1 counters on this creature, which is just incredible. You sack 1 food, it's a 5/5, 2 foods, it's an 8/8, on and on. Creatures with power less than Feasting Hobbit's power can't block it. So you can essentially, for very cheap, sack a couple foods, make a over 10 power creature that just can't be blocked except by something with greater power. This is exquisitely good. Only 2 mana to do so as well. Seems amazing. Feasting Troll King, 2 green creature troll noble with vigilance and trample. When it enters, if you cast it from your hand, create 3 food tokens. You can sack 3 food to bring it back from your graveyard. Activate only during your turn. So a great way to pull this back out of the bin over and over again. Hopefully it doesn't get exiled, and we can use our foods to do so. And then Rampageous Guest, 2 and a black, creature, halfling citizen with menace. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to your player, create a food token. That seems great. Whenever you sack food, put a +1/+1 counter on this, even better. And when it leaves, target opponent loses life equal to its power. This is probably going to get decently large in this deck, so very cool. So the rest of the food-related creation nonsense cards I think you should put in this are Bristlebud Farmer, Cauldron Familiar, Eleanor Gardener, Gilded Goose, Knight of Sweet's Revenge, Nuka-Cola Vending Machine, Provisioner's Merchant, Savvy Hunter, Sir Ginger of the Meal Ender, Tireless Provisioner, Trail of Crumbs, Welcome to Sweet Tooth, Wicked Wolf, and Witch's Oven. Now let's dive right in and see those support cards, starting with some uniquely powerful cards. But before we do so, I just want to say, if you would please consider subscribing to my channel, it would mean the world to me. So the 3 cards I want to talk about that are uniquely powerful in this deck, we have our Fangrean Marauder, Savara, Queen of the Golgari, and Viridian Revel. 3 cards I think just are awesome. So Fangrean Marauder is 5 and a green, so quite expensive for a creature beast. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may gain 5 life. So if you're sacking your food, you're getting 8 life for 2 mana, which seems pretty good. But this also counts our opponent's stuff. So anytime a creature would die with our commander on the battlefield, we're going to gain 5 life for each of those. I'd never seen this card before, but what a cool creature that works so well in this deck. Silvara, Queen of Golgari, 2 black and a green, Ledger creature Elf Shaman, with whenever you sack a black creature, you may pay 2 life. If you do, each other player sacks a creature, which is really good. And whenever you sacrifice a green creature, you gain 2 life. So whichever one you're sacrificing, obviously the black one is more powerful. You can sack with our commander on the battlefield, basically allowing us to clear the board if we have a ton of creatures and our opponents don't. And then Viridian Revel, probably one of my favorite cards in the last year or so I've ever found, especially with the way Magic's going. But for 1 green enchantment, whenever an artifact is put into an opponent's graveyard from the battlefield, you may draw a card. Every deck nowadays has some sort of artifact treasure synergy, it seems like, and I can't tell you how many cards I've drawn from this single enchantment. It's so good. If you're playing against opponents or your friends have a lot of food, clue, treasure, artifact token decks, buy this card. It's only a couple bucks and it'll just accelerate your game plan so good. Now let's look at some cards that really give some power to the tokens that we make or have or destroy. So we have Curious Herd, Marionette Master, and Mirkwood Bats. Curious Herd is 3 and a green instant. Choose target opponent. You create X 3/3 green beast creature tokens, where X is the number of artifacts that player controls. So for 4 mana, if your opponent's got, I don't know, let's say 10 creatures on the board, you get to make 30 power. Very cool. It doesn't even take into consideration if they have other artifacts. That's just their creatures from our commander, so very fun. Marionette Master, 4 black, creature, human, artificer with Fabricate 3. When an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. This is a way we're just going to kill our opponents. You know, maybe you kind of sandbag this card, hold it till you have a ton of stuff on the board, and then can just go on a sacrifice spree. This is very powerful, and be very aware if you're playing against a deck like this. And then Mirkwood Bats, of course, 3 and a black creature bat flying. When you create or sack a token, each opponent loses 1 life. Another great way to just ping down our opponents while also gaining benefit from sacking our food. So some of the other great cards in this support category are Chatterfang, Squirrel General, Collective Resistance, Creeping Corrosion, Deadly Dispute, Disciple of the Vault, Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, Lich Knight's Conquest, Marionette Apprentice, Mazarek, Cruel Death Priest, Pest Infestation, Pitiless Plunderer, Ravenous Squirrel, Reclamation Sage, Telegiad's Defiance, Viscera Seer, and Warren Soul Trader. So lastly here, we're going to look at the good stuff, specifically artifact-related stuff in the good stuff category that I think is important to talk about. We have Ashnod's Altar, Inspiring Statuary, and Monumental Corruption. Ashnod's Altar here, obviously sacking a creature to gain 2 colorless mana. This is a staple card, which would be very good in our deck, but we have a ton of things that care about sacking food. We're sacking a creature, which is technically sacrificing the food also. So a very cool way to get those triggers without having to actually pay mana and actually getting mana from your creatures. Inspiring Statuary, a wonderful card in any artifact deck, but 3 non-artifact spells you cast have Improvise. Technically, our things aren't artifacts until they're on the battlefield, so we can just use our creatures to then cast our other creatures by just tapping them down, which is Awesome. And then Monumental Corruption, 3 black black. Target opponent draws X cards and loses X life, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Now, whether you're in a winning position on the board or you have enough artifacts on the board to take out an opponent, this is a versatile card that I think is worth including. The other great good stuff cards here we have is Abrupt Decay, Arcane Signet, Assassin's Trophy, Birds of Paradise, Culling Ritual, Cultivate, Eternal Witness, Guardian Project, Heroic Intervention, Phyrexian Altar, Rise of the Lich King, Rishkar's Expertise, Soul Ring, Tear Asunder, and Victimize. Now, as always, I leave the land base up to you, whether you want to go as cheap as possible and just include basics, or if you have a collection built up and you want to make this a very good land base, you do so. But I would just like to say thank you so much for watching. This was a very cool deck. I have a lot of friends who really enjoy Golgari, and food has just been such a fun new archetype that's really been making waves, so this is a super, super fun deck. Please comment down below what you think of the deck. Is there any cards that I shouldn't have included, or maybe something I left out? In addition, if you could please leave a like, share this video with a friend, and subscribe. That would mean the world to me, so thank you, thank you, thank you. And today's Scryfall card of the day is the Macabre Waltz. Liliana is never one to follow someone else's lead. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.